Hi everyone! Today I'm actually going to go through my hand lettering evolution. I've always kind of steered clear of this topic because I know that I have what I would call like a bare bones type of skill when it comes to hand lettering. And I'm totally fine with that. I see work out there that completely blows me away. There are people out there in this community that have just the most amazing skill and creativity when it comes to hand lettering. The way that I taught myself, I just wanted to improve enough so that I didn't detest the page that I had lettered on. And once I got to that point, I kind of quit being very gung-ho about learning and practicing. And that's okay with me. So it's always such a compliment when people say, I love your hand lettering, or how did you learn, and all of that kind of thing. So thank you for that, because I'm definitely not in the upper echelon when it comes to this type of skill. But I thought I would make a video just detailing where I started from, what I did, what I changed, how I developed my own style with it. And then I'm going to link in the description the couple of accounts that I used as reference to kind of help me through some of the challenges here. So these I ended up pulling them all out, but these are my books that I used in 2018. So this is when I started. It was like January of 2018, and it is currently July of 2020. And I had a bullet journal. I was in these A5 notebooks. I had them all together, and bullet journaling was like super artistic and just such a craze, especially back then. So that's what I was doing. And I have this scratchbook that I kept in with this whole setup. And in here is where I did the most practicing with lettering. So what I will do is I'm going to replicate this. I'll do it in my little ink swatch book here, but I will replicate and kind of show you how I letter it now. So I ended up starting when I was bullet journaling because I wanted to make my pages really flourishy and beautiful and all of that. And I thought, oh, it's simple enough. How hard can it be? And I think I watched Rach Lee, because she's like the artistic bullet journaling queen. And I remember her saying that all you have to do is push hard on your downstrokes. And I was like, oh my gosh, is it really as simple as that? So anytime you move your pen downwards, you just want to push harder and make a thicker line. And just hearing that, I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I been doing this? I need to do it. I can obviously just master it right away because it's such a simple concept. But no, there's a lot more intricacies to it than that. And a big part of this is also figuring out your own style based on your handwriting and the way that you write. And I think it was Amy Tangerine, who said, your hand lettering should look like it came from you. So your hand lettering should be somewhat of a reflection of the normal way that you write. And that always stuck with me because for a while I kept trying to force myself to mimic exactly what someone else was doing, which is kind of okay, especially if you're just starting out. So I know for a fact this was in January of 2018. I didn't date these, but as I flip through this, you'll see how I got like a little bit better and better. So I didn't do any worksheets. There's hand lettering worksheets. There are so many guides and books and free printables out there for lots of practice, but I didn't want to do that. That just felt like school to me. And I just decided to practice on my own and write what I wanted to write and go from there. So mastering how to thicken up a downstroke and push hard on a downstroke was a really big task for me. It was not as easy as I thought it would be. And also, I don't write in cursive, so I kind of had to relearn how to do that as well. So yeah, and then lifting the pen up to get a thinner upstroke was also very, very challenging. And pretty much right away, I realized that the instrument that you use to letter is as vital as having the muscle memory and practice to create the letters. So I think I was using just the big Tombow duo brush pens. That's what I had. Those are so popular. So those were one of the first things that I bought. So I was using that, and this is me just playing around. You know, I didn't know any techniques at this point. I just wanted to see what I could do with the knowledge that I had to push down on the downstrokes. I realized that I couldn't shape the letters the same way that I shaped them when I was just regular writing. So I knew immediately that that was something I was gonna have to learn, was how to create each letter individually in this format. I think the first thing that helped me out was going straight into writing out entire words, just to get the knowledge of how it feels and to feel how the connections happen between the letters, and how much I needed to get back into the habit of knowing cursive again. And you know, when I'm trying to connect like this O and this U, I realized I might need to like loop around to connect it, and just little things like that. It was just really incredible. And to figure out like where to stop the end of the letter so that there's room to make the next letter and that kind of thing. I realized there was just so much to be aware of. And then one of the things that I had picked up was this bending this line in order to have enough space to go into the next letter. And I really, really struggled with this. This is very common. I see it a lot in a lot of these examples. You'll see me trying to force it and to get myself to learn how to do that. And the way you're supposed to form the letter is that when you do your downstroke, it's supposed to cover up the bend so that it looks like it just flows really naturally and smoothly. I struggled with that a lot, and actually I don't do that anymore. So like for this word most, and I was struggling with how to form an O, I struggled with how to make an S, and obviously my M's were a big, I mean, like everything was a struggle because I was just trying to get the feel of it. So let's put it here and write it out. Okay, we're in frame. All right, so here is how I would write most right now. So it's very different. I feel like everything looks different except maybe the T, but how I cross it a lot more elegantly now. But I went through a process trying to figure out how to make my S's and my O's. So yeah, it's just a matter of figuring out what feels the best with your with the way that you write. So here in the beginning, I was really trying to practice gaining the muscle memory of pushing down when I was on a downstroke, and to lighten up on the upstrokes. And lightening up was a very very challenging thing for me. It did help once I got my Crayola Supertips. So another thing that I was trying to figure out how to form was the letter B. I went into it trying to do it like a proper cursive B, but that didn't work out for me. And I watched a couple of videos and kind of got an idea of like how to do it differently. And what ends up working for me for a B, and then in order to connect it to the next letter, is to make it like you're writing a print B. So then I come around like that. So that is the way that I do it, because I found doing it this way ended up making it look like an F. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I saw somebody make it like this and I was like, oh, well, okay, that's easy enough. So I make my B's this way now. And like here, this was another thing with the A's. I thought the A's would be the easiest thing, but I couldn't believe it was such a struggle. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the first letter in the alphabet and I'm already struggling. So the thing that helped me finally figure out how to make an A that looked nice and round and not like this, because I kept doing this a lot. So the idea that I had was that I would make a C. And by thinking about making it a C, I was able to get the roundness that I wanted, and I quit defaulting into this like really flat, slopey top. So yeah, so I always make a C, and then I just connect the open area to make it an A. And that was like a really great, I don't know if I learned that as a tip from anyone, or I just like did it accidentally. And I thought, oh my gosh, that gives me a perfect A every time. So I thought I was not going to be great at this. And I even considered just giving up and not learning this because it was going to be like way too much effort. And then I ended up getting way down here. Okay, so yeah, I ended up getting my Crayola Supertips, and that was a game changer for me. It was huge. These are the Crayola Supertips that I bought in 2018. I'm still using them, and they're amazing. They're still my go-to instrument. So I would say experiment. You know, a lot of times this stuff is not very expensive anyway. So if you can get your hands on a couple of different tools, you definitely need to do that, because just like how some pens that you write with make your handwriting look better and they're just easier to write with, same goes with whatever brush pen or marker that you're using to do hand lettering. So I am struggling still with connections here. There's an obvious bend in the line every time, and I don't really do that now. Let me see. I'm curious because I'm like, do I do it? And I just don't realize it anymore. So I will write out neighbors. All right. It's way better. Yeah, so I do not bend my connections anymore. And I think that's just because I've gotten enough practice that I know how far apart my next letter needs to be. Because when I was learning this, I think I realized like when I made an H, when I would come back up, I would come up like way too close. And I really needed to spread that out. Like you can see here, I really push it out so that there's enough room and enough space to make the next letter. So that's another tiny little thing, and it just comes with experience. Once you write out your first word, you're like, whoa, there's like so many little things here that need to be changed in order for this to work out and be something decent looking. So what I started doing was I was just practicing with bigger and bigger words. I tried to do transitions from different letters to other ones that seemed a little difficult. I struggled for a long time with connecting an O and an R because I would constantly leave way too much space between the O and the R. And I had to really think about coming back down closer to the O so that everything looked spaced out sort of evenly. So again, little things, I'm still bending my connection lines. I think that's just one of the things that gets phased out as you gain the muscle memory for this kind of thing. So what's going on here? Okay. Oh, and this is another thing, which I think is really funny as I look back through this. So I'm writing out hand lettering. I've obviously spelled it wrong because that is a whole other thing. Is I found that I had to concentrate so much on pushing down and letting up at the right times that I couldn't even focus on spelling the word correctly. It's so weird because you're focusing on so many different things at once when you're just starting out that if it almost feels impossible to be able to think about like the correct spelling of something. And then also you can see everything is like written in a pretty straight line. Like you could draw a line under here and all of these letters would be sitting perfectly evenly on top of it. And one of the things I love when I see people's lettering is how it kind of bounces everywhere. You have letters that dip low, letters that go high, and it looks really fun and interesting. And I love bouncy letters. But practicing it this way, where everything was just in line, was easier to learn this way because adding bouncy letters was like another element that I had to add. And I just wasn't ready for that because I naturally write in a straight line. So I just had to focus on doing that until I got the technique down. And then I could add another element once I got comfortable with that. So yeah, I just really had to take it slow. I really had to work on individual letters. Not every letter gave me issues. And then I had to concentrate on connections. So the P and the R connection, that drove me batty. And it's because I really needed to figure out how to do a P. And I'll show you how I do it now, how I connect it, because I went into it trying to connect it like traditional cursive. So you just kind of bring it back over the line you just made into the next letter. But I make it kind of like my O's and my B's where I loop around and come back up. So my P just looks like this. And I loop it up like that. And that makes a very seamless connection for me. And I like the way that it looks. Part of the thing was I hated the way the P and the R looked when connected this way. And then this is when I actually learned how to make an R. I found I just hated the look of this R to begin with. And I felt like it needed to be taller. And then I realized I needed to make the top loop stick out the top and then make a flat shelf for the R before I brought it back down. I was really kind of dipping, and I wanted that part to be flat. And once I figured that, I was like, okay, I've got my R, I've got it. So a lot of times it was kind of like that. I would keep practicing a letter that was giving me trouble, and then finally get it to where I want. And then I would put it in a Word and see that, oh yes, it works seamlessly. It's perfect. And then also here, the S's drove me batty as well. That was another one I had to practice over and over and over again to figure out how I like it. And you'll see here that I usually over exaggerate my S's. So they usually loop way down or they loop way high at the top. And as soon as I started doing that, it was like I quit worrying about my S's. They, you know, they just kind of fell out of my pen seamlessly. And I don't feel that way about every letter still. I swear, once I got to the point where I didn't feel like my lettering was ugly, then I kind of quit focusing on it and quit practicing it because, you know, I'm okay with being like mediocre when it comes to this. Calligraphy. So that was me just, you know, trying to figure out connections and stuff like that. I hadn't yet figured out how to connect my P's. So a lot of times I would go back. So like all of this, it's not necessarily written on the same day. So sometimes I would go back and write the same word over, but with like a different technique and just compare the two. So I still have bent connection lines. I'm still writing straight across, just trying to, again, concentrate on pushing down when I'm supposed to. I'm trying to pick words that might be a little difficult for me. So the O and the R connection, the P and the R I'm still trying to figure it out here. And then, yeah, the P and the R, I was like, well, maybe I just need to like go down. I hated that. And one of the tips that actually really, really helped me was lifting your pen up after every letter. You know, I had it in my mind, it's like cursive, so it's supposed to be flowing and connecting out of your pen when you do it. But I had learned that you have to go slow and you should pick up your tool after every letter and kind of recenter yourself, figure out how high or low you want your letter to be and where you need to start it. And as soon as I got that tip, it just changed everything for me yet again. So I will write April. All right, so there's my April. Way better. Yeah, so again, no bend. And, you know, I still pick up my marker, whatever I'm writing with, between each letter. Some of them I can go right in just because I've done it so many times that I don't have to pause after every single connection. But I'm telling you, doing that was incredibly helpful as a beginner. All right, so let's keep moving on. Okay, so I get my Crayola Supertips and then I realize, oh my gosh, I can letter. So these were like the big fat Crayola markers. And then I saw on a video from How to Hand Letter, she was using Crayola Supertips in particular. And I think she raved about them. So I got this pack from Amazon and then I haven't looked back because when I hand letter properly, where I'm actually thickening up the downstrokes as I'm writing, Crayola Supertips are the way that I go. So I ended up getting the Tombow, oh yeah, the Fudenosuke pens that are so popular with the hard tip and the soft tip. And I still haven't mastered those. I can't do it. I kept trying. I saw so many people using these and oh my gosh, I thought they would be easy. And that's the thing. Sometimes something will just be amazing for you. And then other times it's gonna be a wreck. And this is one thing I have never mastered using these. Sorry, my fridge is clicking away. So I'm really glad that I ended up getting the super tips when I got these, because if I had gotten these and practiced with it like this, I would have really thought I just couldn't hand letter ever. But having these and being able to use these was a huge for me. So bless me, I was not trying to give up here. I'm obviously focusing on my S's, and yeah, this is around the time where I was like, you know what, maybe I just need to make it like a print S and then just find a way to connect it. I still haven't figured out how to make my B's properly. And let's see. I remember I was trying to do harder letters. There are letters that I detest even today. Okay, so all of these, I'm trying to figure out connections with R. So with OR, with like WR, because there's too much of a gap here, and PR still, so that's the thing. If you're writing or you're hand lettering and you realize there's a weird connection, that would prompt me to just get in here and keep scribbling, keep practicing with it until I got to a place that felt good. And then, where was it? I think it's here. Oh yeah, so I was writing in a very straight line. And then here is where I started experimenting a bit with bouncing my letters, because I felt like I was getting the hang of lettering a little bit. And so I thought, let's, differentiate even more now and start working on dipping low on some letters and stuff like that. So, that came and went. I would just throw it in every now and then if that was, if I wasn't focusing on something else, like a certain connection of letters. So one of the things that frustrated me about bouncing letters is that there's no hard rule for that. Meaning, I just really thrived on knowing that all you had to do is press hard on your downstrokes and boom, you have some lettering. But with bouncing your letters, it's not like there's one particular letter that always goes low and a certain letter that always goes high. It's a judgment call every time, pretty much. So as you're writing, if you see that, a lot of your stuff is going really high, then the next letter you go low. And you basically have to just judge what the letters look like beforehand to figure out which direction your next letter needs to go. And that drove me crazy because I'm not really creative in that way, or it doesn't come very easily to me. So I was like, man, I'm just gonna go back to writing straight. But now I can vary the heights of my letters, and it's much better now. So again, trying to figure out the S's, and I got some more pens. My husband got me some like really terrible markers off Amazon. I'm experimenting with my super tips, and the colors that they look like. I'm getting better here. Like, I can tell I'm getting more confident. I know how to make my S's. I think this is around the time I've obviously decided to go with my S's that way. And let me see. Oh yeah, so I finally figured out my P here. Yay. I don't know why I'm still struggling with S's. This must have been a bit later. Yeah, because I would kind of skip around, but I think that's this pen. Ew. Let me see. We'll see how bad it is. I'll write most. We'll see how this is not the greatest thing for me to write with. Ugh. Yeah, see? Yeah, I can't. It's like a whole other skill to write with. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my transitions are not that great. That's another thing. Making the transition from thin to thick line. I really struggled with that in the beginning as well. All right, so you can kind of see here how there's kind of an extra bump here because I'm trying to actively tell myself, oh, push down hard. But instead of like a gradual pressure, I'm just kind of shoving the pen in the paper because I don't want to miss the opportunity to thicken that up. So there are a lot of non-smooth transitions into the thicker area. So that is another thing that comes with tons and tons of practice and doing it over and over again, but also has a lot to do with the tool you're using. But yeah, that's another thing, is being gentle with it so that that transition happens without like a shelf, you know? All right, so I think that's like the end. Yeah, so, and I'm showing this one because this has the most examples of me starting out. And, you know, it's, yeah, let me write hello again. That's the one that's what I was really starting out with. Okay, so we'll end it with hello. And that's how different it looks after 2 years of, of just messing around and practicing this in everything. And I will say the most practice I got was in actually journaling, actually creating spreads. I have tons of journaling and bullet journals and stuff like that that have this type of lettering in it. And it was just one of those things where I just told myself, it's just going to be a record of my evolution. And if I don't practice it now in my everyday journaling and activities, then I'm never gonna learn. Because in all of the years that I have been practicing this, these few pages are literally all I have of me going into a notebook to actually practice. So this is not a lot. All of my practicing was pretty much in all of my journals and planners and things like that. So, you know, if real-time practicing is better for you, just do it that way. And, you know, embrace the fact that your journals and planners are just gonna show your evolution, which is actually really cool in hindsight to go back and see all of that. This was nice just because I could flip to this and see a bunch of practicing like all in one area without having to flip through my old journals for you. But, you know, some people thrive on it this way, but I think the fact is there's no wrong way to do this. You just have to find a way to practice and find your own style, find what feels good when you're forming it in your hand, and embrace what your handwriting looks like. Anyway, look at the links in the description. I'll link a couple of people that I went to a lot in order to figure out how to do transitions and things like that. Like I said, I'm still not perfect. I hate making Ks and I hate making Zs, and a Z is in my name, and I still hate that. I haven't even come close to mastering how to do a lowercase Z. And you know, it just, yeah, I don't know, that looks kind of okay, but I don't know, in when I write it in a word, it just, I can't, it's the connection, it's the transition into this top part that always throws me, always. You know what, I'll show you. All right, here we go. Okay, that kind of looks okay. I'm just talking junk apparently. I don't know. Oh well, there you go. Maybe I should say I don't have very good muscle memory for making Z's. When I go into making a Z, it's like laser focus. I really have to focus on what my hand is doing. Okay, so that's probably a better explanation for it, is that I don't practice it much, so it just doesn't flow out of my hand like a lot of these other letters do. That is my hand lettering journey. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. That was actually pretty fun to go back and look through here, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.